Women Who Code Leadership Fellow. I help facilitate events for the front end track. And today joining us, we have Rahat here, who's going to talk about building mental health resources in tech, such an important topic given the last year. A few event logistics. Feel free to introduce yourself as you join in the chat and where you're joining from. I know it's great to see people joining from all over the world on these different webinars. We will also do Q&A at the end of this webinar. So you can post your Q&A questions in the Zoom Q&A, and we'll facilitate Q&A at the end of the webinar. Additionally, we are recording right now, so this recording will be posted to YouTube a couple days following the event. So I will also post a link to the YouTube channel if you want to share it with any of your colleagues or friends, or if you want to rewatch it at any point. So just a couple of Women Who Code logistics. Whether or not this is your first webinar with us or you've been on a couple webinars, welcome. Our mission at Women Who Code is to inspire women to excel in technology careers, and we really envision a world where women are representative as technical executives, founders, VCs, board members, and software engineers. Quick code of conduct, very important to us. We are an inclusive community dedicated to providing an empowering experience for anyone who participates and supports our community, regardless of gender, gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation, ability, physical appearance, body size, race, ethnicity, age, religion, and as we often like to joke, preferred programming languages. So welcome everyone. All of our events are intended to inspire women to excel in their technology careers. So anyone who is here to support that is welcome, and we do not tolerate harassment of any members of any form. So that is including this event here today. Our target audience at Women Who Code are engineers with 2 or more years of experience looking for support and resources to strengthen up their careers and level up in their careers. And our movement and our commitment to you all as Women Who Code members is that the world has changed so drastically in the last year. We hope that we can be a connecting force and create a sense of belonging for you all while we have been asked to isolate. Just at the end of 2020, very exciting, we hit 250,000 members. We have 70 networks in 20 different countries, and we have members in 120 different countries via our digital tracks. We put on over 2,000 events annually, and we also offer conference tickets and scholarships. If you sign up for the Code Review, it's our weekly newsletter, and those will have information about conference tickets, scholarships, access to jobs, and resources. If you're interested in looking for that next career or that next pivot, you can check out our job board, and we also hope to provide infinite connections here. If you're not just interested in Women Who Code front end, there are 5 other tracks that also offer tech talks, workshops, tutorials, and trainings, webinars like the one we are on today, as well as interactive discussions, panels, fireside chats, lightning talks, and networking opportunities. There's Women Who Code data science, mobile, blockchain, Python, and cloud. So if there's any other areas of expertise you'd like to check out, feel free to look at womenwhocode.com/digital. Also, if you're interested in getting involved with us, if you're interested in speaking or volunteering, part of my job is to run the volunteer team. We have a great team of women from around the world that help support events and put on different events. You can reach out to me directly at mkcomer@womenwhocode.com. Or if you're interested in a different track besides front end, you can reach out to all of the different tracks at womenwhocode.com. Additionally, we do sponsorships with companies. So if your company is interested in utilizing our network for a job board message, or if they're interested in putting on an event, you can reach out to our partnerships team at womenwhocode.com. And with that, I will welcome Rahat. Welcome, Rahat. We are building mental health resources in tech. He's here today to talk about the importance of self-care and keeping up your mental health while working in the tech industry. Rahat is a second career developer who comes from a background in customer support management. He is a mental health advocate, live coding streamer, and rapper. He is also the founder of a mental health startup called Whimser, which is aimed at helping people in tech manage their mental health. Rahat currently spends some of his free time mentoring new developers, coding, and making music. Welcome, Rahat. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me on here. Really appreciate that, to be able to bring this talk to this platform. Let me share my screen. Am I sharing?
It looks good. You could probably zoom in a bit. It's pretty small.
There we go.
Perfect. Looks great.
Cool. So hey everyone, welcome to my talk, Building Mental Health Resources in Tech. I also like to say that the second part of that title is building in for us and for other people. I'm going to be talking to you all a little bit about some of my own experiences dealing with mental wellness while going through tech, a few things that we can do to make things better, both for ourselves as well as folks around us. Real quick, I was interested before, I'm Rahat Chowdhury, developer, founder, mental health advocate. If you ever want to connect, I'm pretty active on Twitter at RahatCodes. At Whimser.io is the startup that was mentioned earlier, is my mental health startup. Cool. So I'm going to ask everyone kind of like a series of yes or no questions. It'll seem like it has nothing to do with mental health at first, but humor me for a second. So you can probably just say yes or no in the chat. Do you wear glasses or contacts or anything to kind of like help you see a little bit better in general? Probably most people will say yes. Even if you don't, you probably know someone who does. Very common thing, right? Now, if you did say yes, quick question, has anyone ever asked you to try and see harder? Maybe, maybe not. Hopefully not, because that's pretty messed up thing to say to someone who needs glasses to be able to see. But I like you to kind of keep that in mind as we sort of talk about mental health a little bit more, because while they're physical, I guess, impairments like needing glasses or whatever that you can see, and you might not sort of like tell someone they need to see harder to not need glasses. We do say some of that same stuff to someone who might be depressed, going through some type of trouble. We usually try to tell them, try to be happy, or try to do something that will take your mind off of things or whatever it is. That isn't always helpful for people. And one of my biggest things with mental health is that I really want for people to be able to speak about it the same way as like a physical illness or an impairment like needing glasses or whatever. Another quick question. Do you feel comfortable taking a day off from work due to a physical illness, whether you have a cold, you have fever, whatever? Um, Maybe yes, maybe no. Some people don't feel too comfortable for, certain reasons. But going to the flip side of things, do you feel comfortable taking a day off of work for your mental health? Probably not. Most people say no to this question. And people who said yes to the first one probably say no to this one because, a physical illness or something is something you can like tell your boss and, they'll be like, oh, sorry, feel better. See you whenever. And taking off for a mental health day is something that's a pretty foreign concept to a lot of people. And for a while, myself included. But it's something that I'll be touching on heavily throughout the talk. And hopefully it'll be something that you'll be comfortable with doing moving forward. First of all, like, why are we even having this talk? If you're someone who is at a company that is, in a position of hiring, or you're able to get people into your company and you're trying to hire, or if you're just a person looking for a job, looking for your first beginning into tech, things that you kind of need to remember is that every line of code, every algorithm that's run, everything that executes on like a software or a website, all that is written by a person. All of this automation stuff that happens originally written by a person. All these AI stuff originally written by a person. There are people behind every single thing, every bit of technology that is out there. And our mental wellness, our mental health directly affects the productivity of us being able to create these things, of being able to be successful in tech. And that's something I hope that a lot of employers, companies can start to realize and put more effort into building up their support for employees' mental health. I'll be sharing resources later on that can help folks who are in those positions who might be able to, make change in your workplace or anything like that as well. I just want to throw out this huge number, 200 million. So what, why am I sharing this number? What does it mean? So I both love and hate this number at the same time. So this is the amount of work days that the CDC estimates we lose every year due to some form of mental illness, depression, anything else like that. That's a lot of work days. I hate it because like it shows like, yeah, we're, it's a huge problem. We're all kind of like suffering through it. But on the flip side, it also means that like when the first time that I saw this statistic, I was like, okay, maybe I'm not alone. Maybe there are other people who are going through some similar stuff as I am, right? Because there's no way I'm putting in 200 million lost work days in a year by myself. And that's one of the biggest things that I hope anyone takes away from this talk. It's like you're not alone. Generally, we're usually not suffering alone. We're usually suffering in silence because we're not openly talking about these issues. We're not giving a space for people to, I guess, vent or be able to get these issues off of themselves, or providing resources that can, help people out in those situations. The other thing to also kind of keep in mind is that 25% of people that you work with on a daily basis probably have some form of mental illness, whether it's like on your Zoom calls, on, meetings that you have, with people, interviews, whatever. 25% of our workforce is generally going through some type of mental illness. Also, this is from the CDC, all research done in 2016. So this is sort of outdated information. Just imagine how much more it is now, or it was in 2020, due to just the pandemic and everything, and how people are just a little bit more openly talking about it. So there's a few different things I want to touch upon that come up in tech a lot. The first thing is passion. So tech is sort of a weird career in the fact that, unlike a lot of other careers, you're kind of expected to sometimes on the side be, coding, on your weekends, level up your coding, have a side hustle, do this, do that, just to like prove yourself to be, better, or prove that, you can code and whatever it is and that you're good at what you do. A lot of other professions like, being a doctor or a lawyer, as long as you have a certificate, you have a track record of like doing stuff in other jobs, you'll probably be fine. Coding is one of those, or being a developer is one of those things where you have to constantly prove yourself over and over and over again, to that you know how to code, that you know what you're doing. And I think one of the biggest things that we kind of ignore and we don't put enough emphasis on is that a passion for tech is not a requirement to be great at tech. It can be, if you're passionate about it, that's awesome. That's great. I'm pretty passionate about it. I do a lot of side stuff, but that doesn't have to be a requirement for every single person. And I'd really like this to be something that, I guess influencers and, people in hiring positions can kind of like take into consideration a little bit more, because some people are really, just want to do it to be, have a stable income, go home, spend time with their family, whatever, or, do other things outside of work. And we have to work towards coming to a point where that's okay, where it's like, you don't have to have your whole life be wrapped around coding or, improving yourself. And it's something that it took a lot of time for me to just be able to get off of like that train of thinking. I knew, I needed to do some stuff just to stand out when I was looking for jobs, but at the same time, it wasn't good for my own mental health. I also, I go through depression, I go through anxiety, social anxiety, and a lot of the things that tech kind of like forces you into to like stand out, like going to meetups, going to, um, networking, things like that. These are all really hard for people who are, have these mental illnesses and need, I guess, like additional help to be able to overcome those things. And the other thing that I also want to emphasize is that not every single thing you do needs 100% of your energy. Having a passion is great. Uh, Yesterday, I actually spoke to someone who gave me some advice on applying to a company that I really wanted to work for. And he had mentioned highlight different things on your resume, tailor it to the company that you're applying for. And this is great advice. I really enjoyed it. However, I also realized that this is not something I need to do to every single company I apply for. I can give my passion to a company that I really want to apply for. Great. If I just want to apply for the sake of applying to see what happens, I don't need to put my passion into it. I don't need to put all my effort into it. I think kind of selecting where you put your passion into is something important. You don't need to have every bit of code or every project you do as you're coding or presenting something for a job interview or whatever have every little bit of your passion or whatever it is. um, Keep some of it for yourself, keep it for things that matter to you. Next thing that I want to talk about is burnout. A lot of that passion stuff, a lot of that working towards constantly trying to get better and improving as a coder leads to burnout. I'm gonna say something really cheesy, but I think it is pretty accurate. When you burn a match, it only burns for a certain amount of time before the fire goes out. Super cheesy, but it's that's kind of like how we operate. There's only a certain amount of energy that we all have, a certain amount of time that we can dedicate to something before we start to hate it. Um, Burnout is something that's super, super common in tech and outside of tech in general. I'm going to be talking a little bit about, where I went through in burnout, but I wanted to first kind of bring back in this idea of like hustle culture. That happens a lot on social media. That happens a lot in just in general with like people, trying to motivate others to, get into tech. You hear a lot about, you should always be moving, always be building. That's how you get to your target goal. And I think the thing that we don't add into this that really needs to be in here is that you also need to take some breaks in between. You need some time for yourself. You need to let yourself be tired, to let yourself just relax for a little bit. Because if you're always building, you're always doing stuff, you're missing out on other things. You think you might be moving fast, and I'm going to be sharing a time where like I thought I was moving quickly fast, and moving fast was actually what slowed me down because of my burnout. um, and that was when I was building my first startup. So this is sort of like a timeline I put together of different things I was doing while building my first startup. I got some designs, I started coding, I would update my ideas, share it on social media, and then keep coding, building features, looking at new features, starting to build those out. At the same time, this is also when I was looking for my first job in tech. So I was looking for jobs. I was attending meetups and conferences. I was, trying to learn different technologies to keep myself competitive, to help myself stand out. I was mainly a front end developer, but then I was trying to also like learn Python or some other stuff, some back end stuff, and it was all a lot. It kind of just like piled one on top of the other, on top of the other. And then there was several months I was just tired. I didn't want to keep going. I didn't want to move forward because, a combination of just like all the things I was doing, still working full time, and things not being as successful as I hoped they would be, kind of all came together, and I was too tired to be able to do anything. And this is a position that I think a lot of people, especially in tech, put ourselves in. We think that, again, I mentioned this over and over, is like we think we have to keep moving. We think we have to keep coding, keep updating, our skills and things like that. But I want to now share a more successful timeline, something I went through that I'm currently going through, that's been helping and has been helping for me in building my current startup, which is Whimser. Um, First thing, it was just like thinking through what I want to build. Take some time, not to just like jump a into the code, just plan things out, take it a little bit slowly, gather a team. You know, there are plenty of indie hackers out there. That's great. But sometimes if you just like understand the scope of things a little bit better, you might say, okay, I can't really do this on my own. Maybe I need some help. And asking for help is like fine. It's totally cool. You don't need to do everything by yourself. And then you see three things in here that have nothing to do with code. Playing video games, spending time with my daughter, reminiscing with my wife about times when we could go out for dinner. Um, but this is just like me spending some time outside of code, spending some time just away from things, getting my mind away from the startup for a little bit. I'm also, again, while building this startup, looking for my second job. So having these things while going through several rejections or whatever are great because it helps me take my mind off of things. I can have some time to unwind. I like to write and make music. These are just different things that um, help me refresh and just like put myself together a little bit more. Um, and take care of myself. Just like give me just me time. I don't have to worry about building this startup, and I don't have to worry about coding out this new feature. I don't have to worry about applying for more jobs at this point. I can do that tomorrow. I can do that the next day. We tend to give ourselves like these arbitrary, like completely meaningless deadlines in our head, and I think meeting our own deadlines is usually harder than meeting like deadlines at work, meeting deadlines at like, um, for projects that you're doing or whatever it is. And the way that I kind of like made sure that I was doing all this stuff was a lot of times I just like went into my calendar and I booked out time like do not code at this point, do something else, go play a video game, play, spend some time with my daughter, take her out, or, um, play with her a little bit, talk to my wife, spend some time with the family. For me, I had to kind of like really force myself into it. Like it had to be part of my daily routine. It had to be part of my calendar for me to make sure that no matter what, I always took time away from the code. Because that's, taking care of yourself is more important than anything that you'll make, anything you'll build, any work that you do for a company, for anyone else. And then beyond that, I was able to kind of like, look at my vision for our startup, keep working at it. And now we're at a point where, we're ready to almost launch our beta. And I was thinking about this timeline and the last timeline between the two things. And last time I kept going, adding more stuff, adding more code. And then all of a sudden I was done. I couldn't do it. This time I took those like just that time in the middle between doing all these things to unwind a little bit. And I was moving quicker and I was able to get to a goal faster. Because once you hit that burnout, it can be very, very difficult to get out of it. For me, when I was burnt out at that point, it was several months where I just couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. There were several job opportunities that I kind of missed out on because I just couldn't bring myself to kind of like focus hard enough on them that I couldn't. There were several like opportunities for my startup at that point where I couldn't really act on because again, I was too tired. I never gave myself that space to breathe. So one of the biggest things to kind of keep in mind is that when you slow down, when you stop, even for just a little bit, what you're doing is building up more energy for you to be able to keep going in the times when it really matters, when you get those opportunities, when you have to, put in your energy to do all those things. So it's kind of like you have to look at the trade-offs. Like, yeah, maybe I'm spending tonight watching Netflix with the family or, having dinner, playing video games or whatever, and not doing code. But now tomorrow I have more energy to focus on more of this code, more energy to take this idea to another level that I might not have been able to before because because of my fatigue, I might have been not thinking through things properly, not being able to like see a bigger picture of things or whatever it is. And for me, that's a lot of my success in this current startup that I'm working on is really just because I force myself to take breaks. Having someone kind of like to hold you accountable for that is great. Whether it be a spouse, a friend, family, whatever. Um, just like check in with them, kind of make sure that you're, you know, able to come back to what you need, sort of like come back to, I guess, the real world, because your entire world is not just code. The last thing I want to speak about before we go into some resources is imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is something everybody kind of faces, whether you're just starting to learn how to code, whether you've been in code for a couple of years, whether you've been in code for like 20 years. I remember saying some stuff about the imposter syndrome I was feeling when I first started my current job, and my boss had kind of said, "Yeah, it happens. Like, you want to see imposter syndrome? Look at me and this guy. We read some specs on like some GraphQL, and now we're building out this entire like infrastructure that our company is going to be using. We have no idea what we're doing. We just read the document, and we're trying to like make it up as we go." That's just, it's kind of like how everyone feels. We're all kind of making it up as we go. Senior engineers, junior engineers, whoever. Um, we don't always have all the answers, and I guess we just have to kind of like learn to be okay with that. Like a lot of the times when I started a new job, even like before moving into tech and whatever, I in my head it was all these thoughts of like, oh, I fooled these people into thinking that I could do this. Why did they actually want me here? I don't know. Now I have to figure out how to actually do this job or whatever. And there's like two sides of that. Like, okay, maybe you fooled them, but like if you fooled them, then you did it pretty well, because these are people who are trained, and their job is to figure out if you're going to be able to help them or not in whatever company they're at. So if you were that good to fool them, maybe you know something about what you're doing, right? Like, people hire you for a reason. Once you get there, it's like getting over those feelings is tough. They're going to keep coming back, and the only thing we can really do is like kind of like take it a step at a time. And the way that I have usually tried to kind of deal with this is like writing out different accomplishments that I go through as I finish them out. So this is something I started doing this year, January. I started a tweet thread, and in it I just put in like different accomplishments that I've done, whether it's like shipping a open source project, contributing to some code base or whatever it is. You don't have to put this on Twitter. It can be something, personal to you. Write it down in a notepad, in a Word document that you only have access to, whatever. It doesn't matter where it is. Just write down the small little wins that you have along the way. It doesn't have to be anything big. It can be, today I learned how to write a function in JavaScript. Today I learned about dictionaries in Python. Anything. It doesn't matter. It can be, as simple as, I cloned this repo and I'm looking through the code to see if I can contribute to it. That's an accomplishment. You started on doing something, awesome. And I think as you like pile on all these like small wins, once you get to those points where like, oh no, I don't know if I can do this. It's usually something huge. It's usually like I'm assigned a feature at work and I don't know if I can tackle this huge thing. But then I can go back to this list, and there's like, although these may be like smaller things, not as big as this feature, there'd just be so many things that I can look through and remind myself of things that I've accomplished over the past year, over the past 3 years, whatever it is, that it can overpower that bigger thing that you're trying to tackle. And I think that's really one of the biggest ways of like really tackling imposter syndrome, maybe not fully tackling it, but letting you kind of get out of that space that you might be stuck in when you're going through those thoughts of thinking, oh no, what if, I'm actually not as good as I thought. This week I got a rejection from, a company I really wanted to work for. And for a while, I was just like, oh no, like I got rejected. I don't know if I'm good as I thought I was, if I'm just going to be stuck at my current job where I don't want to be stuck at, is this, where I'm just going to be. And coming back to this tweet thread and looking at some of the stuff I've done this past January and the end of last year and thinking through that, um, helped me kind of take myself out of that, help myself see that, okay, this one didn't work out, but look at this other stuff that I've done. Um, I've been on this podcast. I've been doing talks. I've been, um, shipping open source projects. Okay, I didn't get that job, but this is all stuff I can use to help me get another job. Right. So just like having this list for myself has been helpful. I put it out in hopes that, other people will try to do kind of the same thing. And again, doesn't have to be public. It can be just for yourself. No one else has to see it but you, because you're the only one who matters in that case. So wrapping up, I wanted to share some resources that are awesome that can help with kind of navigating mental health in the workplace and a few other things. There's this nonprofit organization called Open Source Mental Illness, or OSMI for short. So it's an organization that is built by other developers, tech professionals. They're all developers who like go to different conferences, meetups, and events like this to talk about mental health, talk about the importance of mental health in the workplace and things like that. And they have 3 ebooks that are really awesome for just generally different things you can do in the workplace that are great for your mental health. They're available at osmihelp.org, and the 3 books, they're all free, but I would recommend throwing them a few dollars. They put it about all these resources out for free. You can grab them whenever you want. They do have like a pay what you want feature, so throw them whatever you think it's worth, but they're doing a lot of awesome work. So I really recommend it. The 3 books that are really, for me, have been impactful. The first one is Mental Health in the Workplace. So they give you like different guidelines for what you can do as an employee, what you can do as an employer in the workplace to support the mental health of those around you, your own mental health, different tips and things just in general for work. Another one specifically for executives and HR professionals. It's how to fully support your employees' mental health. So if you're someone in a hiring position, or if you're in a position where you might be able to send this resource to someone who is in those positions, I definitely highly recommend this one as well. And the third one is specifically for employees. And it does a lot of work about understanding your rights in the workplace. And it covers the Americans for Disabilities Acts for US workers. Sorry about that. That was Alexa. But yeah, for employees, understanding your rights in the workplace, covering the Americans with Disability Acts for US workers. And these are all great resources. It covers some of the stuff I talked about in more detail. So I highly recommend checking these out and definitely supporting these folks if you have the means to do so. So just wrapping up again, my name's Rahat. You can follow me in a few different places. Rahat Codes is on Twitter. And hopefully you enjoyed this presentation. Hopefully it kind of impacted you in a positive way is what I really hope for. And like the main thing again that I really hope for is that if nothing else, maybe you gain from this is the fact that that you're not alone. There's other people like me, like you, like going through some similar stuff. I think as we start, implementing spaces for us to be able to speak about this, for us to be able to address the feelings that we kind of go through, and like work on ourselves and just make it safe to be able to talk about these things, we'll probably be able to, kind of solidify the fact of more that we're not alone, and then maybe get into a place that's a little bit better. So yeah, we can go into any questions.
Thank you so much. I personally learned a lot, and it's just a constant reminder that there's more than just coding, and there's lots to think about in terms of mental health. That being said, does anybody have any questions? Feel free to submit via Q&A, or if you'd like to ask the question yourself, raise your hand. I can give you speaking rights. We do have one question so far. This advice is easier said than done. Any tips on how to begin practicing this advice?
Yeah. So I think I kind of mentioned a little bit of like kind of scheduling things in into my calendar. So it's pretty easy to, kind of like go into your regular day. You go to work, you have, your regular duties, you have meetings. One thing I started doing recently is just blocking out time for me. You don't have to like label it as anything. Just like block that time out for like, personal work or heads down doing something, don't disturb, whatever. And just like take some time at that point just to like breathe, walk away from, what you're doing. This like one piece of advice that you probably hear a lot, as you're coding or learning how to code is like, if you're kind of stuck on something, walk away from it, come back to it with a clear head. That is like tired advice, but it works. Everyone says it because it actually does work. I've had so many times where I'm just like frustrated with a bit of code, frustrated with whatever is going on. And then I just go take a walk, let myself cool off, get a drink, do something, come back and come at it again with like a fresh set of eyes, a fresh mindset. It's like it's really, it sounds cliche, but it works. Yeah.
I totally agree. Sometimes when I'm frustrated with code, I'll just take a walk, think about something different, and then it kind of comes to me later. So
Yeah.
that's great advice. Suganya, you have your hand up. I'm gonna let you talk and ask a question if you intended on asking a question. And if you want to go ahead and ask your question, you should be able to talk. Oh, she actually just asked her question in the chat. I'm so grateful you spoke about passion. I constantly feel guilty and ashamed for not being passionate enough to work on coding projects all through the weekend. How do you recommend navigating interviews?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things there is just like, yeah, a lot of companies probably ask you like, what are you doing, aside from work, aside from um I guess different, like how are you trying to improve your skills as a coder? And yeah, like you mentioned, a lot of people seem to expect that, you should have this 24/7 passion attitude. And I guess for me, as someone who does do like side stuff, it's a little bit easier, I guess, to show some of the things I've done. But one thing that I would like really, that I kind of like to tell people is like, you can like give the appearance of being super passionate without actually being there. Like if you're working, let's say you have some, let's say you finished boot camp or you finished some course or something on code and you're going for your first job, add some like small things here and there after like completing the boot camp or completing that project or whatever it is. Like it doesn't have to be huge. It can be just like adding a couple lines of code, one small feature, and then build up on top of that. Talk about that later. It's like, hey, yeah, I started this you know, in my boot camp, and I liked what I did. I decided to keep adding some stuff to it. So on some weekends, I might add like this, like just taking a really tired out cliche example. Like let's say you built a to-do app. Um, I added this other feature of like letting people be able to log in and creating accounts or whatever. Just like Something that you can add that doesn't have to be like a huge like new project or feature, like and talk about that, right? I think a lot of people kind of see passion as like, oh, I have to work on these huge things. I have to talk about this other project that I've worked on. It doesn't really have to be like a whole new thing that you worked on. It can be stuff that you've already done before and you're just adding little things to it, so that you can kind of like go at it at your own pace, at your own time. But then you still show that like, even though like you personally know that you've only added some small things here and there, you can present it as like, I'm still working on this. I'm still going beyond like, what we started on. And I think using smaller things to show your passion is probably a better way of going about it than trying to like build these huge things, like building a new social media or new blockchain or whatever. And instead of doing stuff like that, just add small things to what already exists.
Definitely. And a little plug for Women Who Code. You're here learning and trying to get different resources. You're already passionate about what you do, so you're already taking the right steps. Another question just came in. To build on time blocking, how much time and energy do you spend on planning versus building, shipping out your project or feature to prevent burnout? And how do you approach this? What tools have been good for you or helpful for you?
Yeah. So what I've started doing a lot now is really just talking to other people, getting some advice on like how I should approach things. So yeah, so other than time blocking, it's like if I think through an idea, like the good thing with the startup is we have like other people that I can talk to and kind of like bounce ideas off of and figure out how much time and effort certain things will take. Um, and it's good to just have just someone to speak to and like have you remind each other to like step back a little bit. Um, so one of the biggest things is like, if possible, just try not to do it alone. Like y'all are part of this community here. You all can like be accountability, folks for each other. Find someone else who's doing similar stuff to you are. And accountability works in two ways. It helps you kind of like remind each other to do the work, but it also helps you remind each other to take a step back. Like, cool, you did this stuff that you said you would do, but did you take some time, for yourself? Did you take some time to just like step away from it a little bit? And shipping is important. You definitely want to get stuff out there, but it's not the most important thing. And if you're just like constantly doing that instead of other just like taking that step back, that's when you'll probably hit that burnout. Because if we're always just kind of thinking about shipping the next feature, shipping the next, I guess, project that you're working on, that's where you'll get that burnout. That's where it starts to feel like, okay, this is never going to end. Um, so yeah, blocking out that time, having someone to kind of keep you accountable, um, and just in general, remembering that like just like talk to people who are not in tech, and like have them kind of take you out of it too, because family, friends, whatever, who are not devs, who are not in this, will have a much easier time pulling you out of that, because they have other things that they can like distract you with, right? So just like look into those other things, like find your support groups, whether it's family or friends, wherever it is. And I think that really helps too in avoiding burnout.
That's great advice. Does anybody have any other questions? You can submit them via Q&A, or if you'd like to just ask them directly, you can raise your hand. All right, well, I suppose this concludes this webinar. Thank you so much on behalf of Women Who Code for being here, Rahat, and thank you all of our attendees. So much to learn here and great advice to move forward on.
Awesome.
Everybody has a good rest of your Friday and a nice weekend. Thank you.
Thank you all.